Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney save. Today we're going to be working on the Mulan themed outdoor gym. This is actually called Raging Fire Gym and it is located in between the two most recent speed builds, Shang's camp and the Hun's camp, and you'll see them a little bit on the left and right side of this lot. This is the full vision of this little area that we sort of wanted to create, where the Huns are sort of in one area, Shang and his soldiers are in another area, and then in the middle there is like this outdoor battlefield gym inspired by Mulan. And it definitely has a lot of references to Mulan. I'm really excited about how this turned out and excited to show you guys what I've done here. So we are working again on a little bit of a smaller lot. Mount Komorebi does have a few larger lots, but we got sort of unlucky with this lower portion of the map area, I would say, where we just have quite a few 20 by 15s and smaller. This is actually a little bit bigger than both of the lots on the left and the right. I believe that this is a 20 by 30, which is why it worked out so perfectly that this could be the gym, because I definitely needed the little bit of extra space so that I could do just the faintest bit of terrain and placing some of those debug rocks and trees and just having maybe a little bit more room. I cannot even imagine trying to do this lot on a 20 by 15. It definitely would not have turned out as good as it did. But of course, as with the other two lots, if I had had a little bit more space, we definitely would have been able to do quite a bit more here, but we are sort of working on a very limited area because I did want these lots to be sort of in the same little area, and it makes a lot more sense if they are. This is actually also going to be the club hangout location of Shang's Soldiers Club and the Huns Club. So you'll see the mix, the good mix of Mulan characters hanging out on this lot, and this will be like their little hangout spot for when you do club meetings and things like that. So it'll probably create quite a bit of conflict. I do add things into the save file when you download it, like certain characters will already have relationships with one another, meaning that a lot of the Huns characters that you guys have hopefully already seen me create, and Shang's soldiers and Shang, will probably already have some kind of relationship with the other characters. Mostly negative, if we're honest, right? These guys are supposed to be basically enemies, and in the save they will kind of function as rivals and rival clubs and things like that. So this lot is based after kind of two specific things. The first being the battlefield that Shang and his little crew stumbles upon in the movie when they are moving on to the next location. They kind of find the battleground where Shang's father presumably had passed in like a previous battle. So the idea was to use at least some of that as reference. However, it had not like a ton to go off of as far as reference goes, because it was a old Chinese village that had been torn apart and there were a lot of bits and pieces left over, but nothing really to use as like great reference. And the other thing that I wanted to do was use a lot of the Make a Man Out of You scenes to try to build inspiration for the build. So we have a combination of the two here. From the battlefield, the things that did remain were sort of like the entrance gate and the walls, and it was all kind of broken down and specifically from the movie I think burnt down, but I wanted to still do a little bit of representation of it by using a very similar archway in the front area here and using fences and stuff like that to kind of close the entire gym in. Even though this is an outdoor gym and it's supposed to be very like campy, homemade, you're more using like the environment itself to create a gym rather than having like a beautiful indoor gym or something like that. That's an idea that we definitely could do later on with something else, but the idea of this was to have a more natural sort of landscape for the gym and have it have a lot of things to do that had a little bit more to do with using like your natural environment to work out, which is obviously very hand in hand with the Huns and with Shang and the soldiers. And you can see that in the Make a Man Out of You scenes as well, where Shang is training a lot of the soldiers. He tends to use things that are, and again because of the time period, but not specifically like gym equipment, and he has them like running up hills with sticks and buckets of water, and they're training with different sticks and they're using the river, and he has like agility training over the river and jogging and stuff like that. So the idea was to kind of represent all of that in a build. So I went and rewatched both scenes and made a long list of stuff that I wanted to include in this build and try to represent in any way that I can. The first one being the little river area that I created over to the far right where we have the sticks coming out of the top of the river. That's actually going to get replaced with some different types of sticks. There's some ones in debug that go all the way through like the bottom of the grid spacing so that you can actually see them go all the way through the water rather than having them sort of floating. It looks just a little bit more natural and realistic compared to what you would see. But in the movie, they are using it to sort of jump across different pegs in the river so that they can train for balance and probably to get across the water really quickly. And that was a little thing that I decided that I wanted to have. So I did a small pool river area over to the right. And obviously your Sims are going to be able to use that as an actual pool. I did add later on a diving station so that your Sims would have an area to dive into the pool. And there is also a fishing post there, presumably, again, because from the movie they would be using real natural water, so there would be fish in there as well. And one of the things that Shang did teach them was like how to catch fish with your bare hands, so I wanted to have some fish kind of swimming around in the pool area, but your Sims will likely just use it mostly as a pool, which is really nice. The other thing that I kind of wanted to do, and this was an idea from the beginning, and I'm a little sad that it really didn't work out, but I really wanted to have some natural rock climbing walls. So Mount Komorebi gave us the rock climbing skill, and there are some specific rocks in debug that your Sims can use to rock climb. However, I had an issue when trying to use those on this lot. The Sims were not using them correctly. I'm not sure if it's not actually the same rocks in debug or if I was just having some weird issues, but I could not get the Sims to use them as an actual rock climbing wall. And I also, well, I knew this from the beginning, but the lot type itself requires a certain amount of gym equipment, which the game does not recognize those rocks as being gym equipment. Even though you do the rock climbing on them, the game wants you to have like X amount of gym equipment. So we did end up having to opt for the more modern looking rock climbing walls, and I did move them back up against the rocks to kind of create the idea of that. And I would have obviously loved to have been able to use something that wasn't so modern looking, but being that this is a gym lot, at the end of the day it has certain requirements and things that I just had to kind of compromise and use things that you wouldn't really think necessarily for Mulan, but we do have to go ahead and use it anyway. The next thing I wanted to add was the Huns themed Scarecrow that the guys are shooting fireworks or some type of rocket, whatever you want to call them from the movie, they have like a little scarecrow that's kind of dressed up like a Hun, and they have a target underneath. So even though, again, it's kind of a non-interactable thing, although Patchy in this is an interactable object, you can sort of talk to him and eventually get him to come alive and be your friend and all of that. It's not really something that's gym related, but it was a cute little reference to the movie. So I took the salt circles from the paranormal pack and kind of layered them underneath to make a target, but there are some pumpkins that are attached to Patchy, so I kind of wanted to cover those up because it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the lot's theming. Another thing from the movie, this is just a small detail, and this is something that I'm kind of hoping they add this in the future and I would be able to come back and update this lot, along with a few others, obviously, but archery is a really big thing in a few Disney movies, and Mulan has quite a few scenes where they are practicing some form of archery. So the best I can really do is at least make reference to it at this point. I did think about putting darts here and trying to cover up the dart machine so that it was here and usable, but it wasn't gonna look super modern and like randomly have darts. But at the end of the day, it kind of looked a little funny and it wasn't really a great reference for the archery. However, there are some arrows in debug, and I did use this on Shang's lot when we did the post in the center and we did the arrow up at the top that Shang shoots as a kind of a training thing for the soldiers to try to get to the top. He also does a training session in Make a Man Out of You where he has them shoot arrows and try to nail like a tomato into the tree. So the best we could do with that was at least make reference to it by putting some arrows in some of the various tree trunks on the lot. So there's a couple of trees and most of them have some arrows sticking out of them. I thought that that was just like a fun little moment. Gyms also require a bathroom, obviously. Now, to do a bathroom here, originally I was like, what are we gonna do? Because I knew that I wanted this entire lot to be completely outdoors. I did not want to build any type of structure. And then I found this little hut from Snowy Escape. It's a debug item, and I thought it would be a cute idea to maybe just hide some of the required lot items in there and have it be like an outdoor bathroom. So there's actually 2 bushes on the lot that you can use to use the bathroom, and then there are 2 showers and a sink hidden in this little hut, and you can barely see them, but they are going to function as like the little showering area right next to the pond / river there, and it gives your Sims like a little bit of sense of privacy, and it still has like that outdoor, very environmental element to it. So I think it's a happy medium, and I kind of love how it turned out. I think it was very different. And then there are some smaller details to the lot. There are some flags around that are references from the campsites. I did find a doll in debug, which if you'll remember from the movie, Mulan finds a doll on the battleground. So I thought it would be kind of a cute moment to at least pay tribute to that by having this little jogging area that spirals up around kind of like a hill and have the doll be up at the top. And again, Shang has the soldiers train by putting a stick over their shoulder and then carrying buckets of water kind of up the hill. So I wanted to have the hill here as like a jogging area, and I wanted to have at least like a station where there's like buckets of water of some kind and some sticks and things like that to kind of simulate the idea that that is something that you could do here. Obviously, it's not something you can actually do here because of the game mechanics, but you can have your Sims jog, you can definitely have your Sims generally work out. And then like I mentioned before, we did have to add a few things to make the lot function as properly as possible like a gym. So there are 2 rock climbing walls, 3 of the old style punching bags, and there are at least 2 of the multi-use equipment arm stretcher thing. I'm not really sure what the proper terminology is for it. I didn't want to overdo it and kind of scatter them all over the lot. I wanted this to look very natural and have all of the modern looking stuff sort of tucked away to the sides. Oh, and there is one other small detail. There is a tiny little pond tucked in the top left-hand corner behind this bit of bamboo that I thought would pay tribute to the swimming scene from Mulan, where she's trying to get like a private little bath session and she gets interrupted by the other 3 soldiers. I wanted to have like the bigger pond area over to the right and then more of like a secluded private little pool that maybe some other characters could try to go over and use for a little bit more privacy. That was not a part of the speed build, but I did tuck that over on the other side of the hill area here. And then we have a fire pit, we have some seating around the fire pit and things like that for your Sims. And overall, I feel like there is quite a bit to do here outside of just the gym, but the gym, of course, as well. And this is our first gym for the save file, so I'm really excited to finally be bringing this to life. It was something that was very much recommended from the beginning. People wanted a Mulan-themed gym, and I definitely have been so on board, so I'm really excited that this is kind of all coming together, and we are getting towards the end of Mount Komorebi. Now, the new Sims pack has been at least sort of announced, and when I am filming the audio for this, the trailer is actually supposed to be up live tomorrow, I believe, and the rumor is that it is a country-themed pack with a new world, and it looks kind of old-school village-y, which you know is going to be really exciting for me specifically and the Disney save. We've been kind of waiting for a new world that might be a little bit more old-timey and maybe fit some different movies, including like Belle's Village and things like that, where I've already done them, and Belle's Village specifically is in Willow Creek right now. We can always move it if it fits a little bit better in the new world, but if anything else, it's probably going to give us some more space to do some stuff from some of the Disney princess movies that we previously didn't have a ton of room for. But right now, I don't know anything about the pack, and I'm just excited to see the new world and the theming and how modern it looks, or how maybe sort of Renaissance-y kind of looks, or at least kind of old-timey in some way. Classic village vibes anywhere in the world outside of the US, and I am going to be presumably some level of happy. I do hope it is a larger world. If anything, I'm hoping so much that it is not like Glimmerbrook and it's not maybe like 5 lots that are all sort of larger, and because it's farming based that is what they are going to do. But let's keep our fingers and our toes crossed that it is a decent looking world. I'm not promising that I'm going to be moving on there next. I have said already that I have been planning to move to Windenburg next. It really depends on how this new world looks. We might have to kind of plan them back to back or together, and then I can maybe jump in back and forth between the two. But again, it's kind of working ahead of the pace there because we're not quite done with Mount Komorebi yet, and I have not seen the new world, so I'm not sure. But let me know what you think of the idea of the new pack down below. By the time you guys see this, it might already be out, at least the trailer, so let me know what your trailer thoughts were as well. Stay tuned over the next week or two. We are going to have the last few speed builds and creative sims of Mount Komorebi coming out. We have some Mulan townies left to do. We have Shang's dad, the Fa family ancestors. We have the Emperor and Chief Fu, his kind of right-hand man. And then I have some last-minute things that I need to do. There are 2 smaller lots for Mount Komorebi that we have to work on that are outside of all of the theming we've done so far. And one of them in particular I'm very excited for because it is going to be Disney princess themed, which you guys know is my absolute favorite. That'll probably be the very last thing that we do for Mount Komorebi, and then we will know more about the new world so we can kind of decide if and when we are going to move on and where we're going to move on. But that is going to be the end of today's speed build. Let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. If you would like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post, and I will talk to you all in the next one.